The news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
A New York grand jury voted that no charges will be filed against Rochester police officers in connection with the March 2020 death of Daniel Prude, a black man who was in the midst of a mental health crisis during his encounter with the police. For NPR, Prude's family uncovered video footage showing officers pinning him to the ground while he was in handcuffs and with a mesh hood over his head. Police body camera footage of the arrest sparked outrage when it was published in September, prompting days of protests and accusations of a cover-up by city officials. Several members of the Rochester Police Department command staff either resigned or were fired in the wake of the incident and ensuing protests, and city officials have pledged reforms. Rochester police also drew renewed scrutiny again in recent weeks when body cam video emerged showing officers handcuffing and pepper spraying a 9-year-old girl while responding to a call about a family disturbance. The police officers have since been suspended, pending the conclusion of an internal investigation.
And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
We got the feeling now. Yeah.
R&B, soul, funk, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We give you all that and more on Star Time. Join me, Paul Pearson, for a 2-hour trip through the history of R&B. A new episode every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Come and get the feeling on Star Time on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Khi nào nên đeo khẩu trang? Hầu như mọi lúc mà bạn đi ra ngoài, như đi cà phê, trên xe buýt, hay đi thăm bố mẹ, khi đi làm, đi dạo buổi trưa trong công viên, hoặc mưa buổi tối trên đường về nhà. Hãy đeo khẩu trang trong mọi hoàn cảnh, vì khẩu trang ngăn chặn sự lây lan của COVID-19 và giúp bang Washington mở cửa. Người dân Washington, hãy đeo khẩu trang để mở cửa bang Washington. Hãy truy cập website coronavirus.wa.gov để biết thêm thông tin chi tiết. Thông điệp này do chính phủ bang Washington mang đến cho bạn.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, RainierAvenueRadio.world, and on Twitter at RainierAvRadio.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Tell me you want a woman who's simple as a flower. Well, if you want me to act like that, you got to pay me by the hour. Don't want to travel in the danger zone, take another number. Don't want a lover who can hold her own. Baby, step aside if you don't want to find me. Wild women do, and they don't regret it. Wild women show what they're going through. Oh, wild women do what you think they'll never. What you only dream about, wild women do. Oh, yes, they do. You think that love is a vision of princess in a picture. Well, let me tell you something, little boy, you wouldn't know love if it hit you. Scared of someone who is off the wall, kicking and screaming. Don't you want a lover who can do it all? Listen to me, Jack, I ain't holding back. So wild women do, and they don't regret it. Wild women show what they're going through.
All right, everyone, good afternoon. You're on Rainier Avenue Radio, and this is Afternoons with Monique. I'm Monique Lee, your host, and you just listened to While Women Do. It is Women's History Month, and I had a few women coming on the show this month. The first lineup, I am proud to bring my firstborn, Miss Tara Gardner. She is a junior at Nathan Hale High School and a contestant at Miss Washington Teen USA 2021 and Miss Seattle 2020 to be on the show. Tara, are you here?
I'm here.
Hi, Tara. So I'm glad you could join us today.
I'm glad to join.
Okay. Well, it is Women's History Month, and I thought, what better way to kick off with a young woman, young lady who is coming into the world, and Tara is 17. She is a junior at Nathan Hale. Tara, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm 17 and I'm competing as Miss Seattle Teen USA for the title of Miss Washington Teen USA.
Very good. Well, first, at the beginning of the show, I would love to know what subject you're good at in school, and then maybe later on, I'll ask you about your journey to compete in this pageant and why. Okay, so can you tell the audience a little bit about what you enjoyed studying in school and where you going? And sorry, go ahead.
My favorite subject in school is definitely language arts because I actually enjoy reading and writing essays a lot. And I think in that class, I learn a lot about how to do that. So language arts is definitely my favorite.
All right. And are you planning to go to college? Which college are you thinking of applying?
I definitely want to apply to the UW because you graduated there, and I also think it's one of my favorite schools around here, so I really want to see if I can get in.
Yeah, of course. Well, folks, I've known Tara her whole life. So today I just wanted to have an opportunity to introduce Tara to the show and the audience and bring awareness to her platform during this contest, this pageant with Miss Washington Teen USA 2021. But before we get into that, I would like to share some background about Tara and myself. We came from a long line of academic people. So running a pageant or running for a beauty contest, or so-called, is not something that we ever thought would be promoting women. Let me just put that out there right now. That it's never occurred to me that that is promoting feminism or women. But in later years, as I embrace American culture and it's all its glory, I've learned that there are many ways to honor a woman, not just intellectually or just their personality, but everything about a woman can be celebrated, including beauty. So I've come around to this, and when Tara came to me, or Tara expressed interest in this pageant, I was somewhat reluctant, but I am agreeing to allow Tara to compete. So how did you come to learn about this, Tara?
Well, there's definitely a lot of stereotypes about pageants. And I was a bit skeptical at first before joining because I know that a lot of people have some bad things to say about pageants. They think that it's against feminism. But if you look into it, pageantry is about so much more. This is my first pageant, so I've never had the actual experience of competing yet. But so far, just from preparation, I've already gained so much confidence and I've learned so many important skills already. So I think if people take a closer look into pageantry, they'll realize that it's more than just about judging women based off their beauty, but also paying attention to their intellect and the way they can portray themselves and set an example for others.
So Tara, you know that I've always encouraged you to do well in school, first and foremost, more important than pageant, more important than cars or friends. That you are half Asian, so you know that in our family, I encourage you to first and foremost focus on your school and academic and cultivate your intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So, what made you decide to choose the platform that you did? And maybe you can tell us about the platform, why you picked the platform that you did.
So my platform is about denormalizing the racism of Asian people. And I picked this platform because, as someone who comes from Asian descent, I've both seen and heard so many stories about Asian hate crimes and racism, especially towards my sister, and also people like Vincent Chin or Hannah Oh, and so many others. And it makes me want to just raise as much awareness as possible because I feel like not enough people are aware of how normalized the racism towards Asian people is.
And what did you, I know that you share with me about some stuff that goes on around your school, your peers, since the pandemic started, that affected you and made you feel strongly about bringing this issue to become your platform um, for your pageant this coming up this March in about 2-3 weeks here. So share with our audience what's going on at the high school level where you are.
Yeah, so the pandemic has definitely made a huge influence on the racism towards Asian people. Some things I've noticed are there's a lot more jokes going around that people kind of just pass by and don't pay attention to. I've heard so many racial slurs, calling people disgusting, calling Asian people disgusting or infected just because they have Asian features, and people just automatically assuming that they might be sick or that it's their fault for bringing the COVID-19 to the US. And at my school, I've definitely heard so many jokes that people just get away with, and no one ever seems to speak up about it because the racism is so normalized.
Well, Tara is losing signal, it seems. My router.
Sorry,
Can
what
everybody
was that?
hear me? All right, Tara's back. All right.
Mom, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. All right. So, you were saying something, you were sharing with us about how kids from your school and other schools responds to Asian community, Asian people during the pandemic, and you got cut off. Can you share with us again?
Yeah, so I was saying that ever since the pandemic started, there's been so many more jokes about the coronavirus. And since it did start in China, a lot of the jokes are targeted towards Asian people. And it's really normalized, especially like at my school. I've noticed things. People just make jokes and just get away with it. People just hear them and let them slide because the racism towards Asian people is just so normalized.
I see. I guess I am the one that has trouble with my Wi-Fi for some.
Mom?
I'm having Wi-Fi connection problem now.
Mom, can you hear me?
With people, what? Yeah, I have a hard time connecting. I'm gonna look for a hard wire, but while I'm gone from the screen, why don't you share with our audience about your platform and what you know uh, about Asian hating, anti-Asian sentiments that you have learned and observed?
Okay, so my platform is, as I already said, the trying to denormalize Asian racism, and a couple of examples of where there's been Asian hate crimes in the U.S. are Vincent Chin, who was beaten to death by two white men who automatically assumed that he was Japanese and started calling him racial slurs, and then just beating him, and he was sent to the hospital where he was killed. And that just made me realize even more that there's been so much violence towards Asians and they seem to be a target. I feel like one of the reasons that Asian people might be a target is because they might be seen as weak or like they won't stand up for themselves. So this is also something I'm trying to bring awareness to, because it's not okay at all for people to just assume that Asian people are weak and commit violence against them and murder them. It's terrible. And since I am Vietnamese, it really connects me to it because my mom and my sister are both Vietnamese, and they have seen and heard lots of Asian racism too. And I want to do everything that I can to bring an awareness to that and help those too. Mom, are you back? Okay, so another thing I wanted to bring up was the definition of xenophobia. A lot of people don't know what that is, but basically, xenophobia is being afraid of somebody because they're foreign or they're not from around the place that you are. And xenophobia has definitely been brought up a lot during the pandemic because when some people see an Asian person, they might just automatically assume that that person is someone to be afraid of or is carrying the coronavirus. And that also does go along with the Asian hate crimes happening because a lot of these people are attacking Asians just because they're afraid of them. And it really is just terrible. Another incident that happened that my sister told me about. My sister is Vietnamese and she's a 12-year-old in 7th grade, and she's told me about how people at her school will call her coronavirus or ask her if she's sick when she's obviously not showing any symptoms, but they just assume that she might be sick, or they're trying to make a joke about it because she's Vietnamese. And what really hurts me the most about this is that it's 7th graders talking about it, and they must have either been taught that by their parents or heard it somewhere else. But I think it's just terrible that kids at such a young age are still making jokes about coronavirus, and it really does start at a young age, and it does depend on what you're taught by your parents and the people who you're around. I'm not really sure what else to bring up about this. Okay, so also, another incident that's happened is Hannah O, this happened last April. She was just walking on the sidewalk, and these two white men approached her and yelled these racial slurs at her and called her disgusting and infected. And she got really scared, so she went back into this drugstore, and then she came out, and I think what happened was she was followed to her car, um, and she noticed that this lady made it way too obvious that she was afraid of her. She obviously walked around the sidewalk as far as she could from her. Um, and that was definitely not a coincidence, and that was an act of racism, because this was right when the pandemic started to happen in the US, and she was the lady was trying to avoid Hannah O and make it obvious that she was afraid of her. And that was I've also seen that too when I'm walking around with my Asian friends, or when I'm walking in public with my sister. This doesn't happen as much, but definitely back in March and April, when the pandemic became when it really started in the US, I definitely noticed lots of people like avoiding us, walking on the other sides of the sidewalk, crossing the street instead of walking next to us, and making it really obvious that they were afraid of us. And something else that is a huge struggle that a lot of people don't really know what to do about is Asian people are sometimes afraid to wear masks in public, because when they're wearing masks, they might be seen as sick, or people might think that they're infected just because of that. Well, obviously, everyone else is supposed to wear a mask too. When an Asian person wears one, it might signify that they have coronavirus. Oh, it looks like mom's back.
Thank you, Tara, for carrying the show on for mommy. I
Yeah.
am trying to log on with the computer and the Wi-Fi connection with the computer, but it's not responding. Well, you're playing co-host today, Tara. Okay, so I missed part of what you've been sharing with the audience, but I'm guessing you probably talked about what you and I talked about a couple nights ago, sharing with the audience what inspired you to want to bring the platform of denormalizing Asian hating or anti-Asian sentiments in America. So, we only have about 5-6 minutes left, but I want to make the most of our time. So how about we share with the audience? I mean, tell me what you've been sharing with the audience very quickly, just a snap.
Okay, so I shared about Vincent Chin, Hannah O to victims, and then I also talked about the definition of xenophobia and what I've seen happen to my sister and I.
Right. Okay. So you know about xenophobia. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we watched a lot of the shows that educate you and Luli, your sister, about the Asian history in America and how the law changes over the years? And we thought that things have gotten better today, but recently with the pandemic, we've experienced more hate crimes. Did you share with them what you've learned about this?
Yeah, so I shared about Vincent Chin, who was beaten to death, and also I brought up Hannah O, who was called lots of racial slurs and faced lots of racism.
Right. Well, when Vincent Chin happened quite a few years ago, the thing is, recently this anti racism against Asian community had been really pronounced since the pandemic because of the coronavirus. And as you already talked to me about this, your school and other people had shared with me, and what I read in the news, the attack and the killing of Asian people that happened since the pandemic is alarming, and we need to bring awareness and ring the alarm bell and let people know about the issues that's happening with our community. So, did you know about the economic access? We talked about this the other. How? What does it mean when um, when a community is being denied economic access when because of their race they are being prevented from having access to financial resources because of their race, or they're being kept down. The history of that, I've shared about that with you. It's very insidious, right? It's hidden and it's undercurrent, and it deprives the people of that community from having a voice and gaining strength. And did you know that because it is Women's History Month, did you know that women and kids are 2.5 times more likely to be harassed during the pandemic more than men?
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about these things, and I tried to educate you and your sister about different issues that go on in the community. But you know about the Jade Garden incidents. Did you tell the audience about that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so what do you know about the harassment of the community? You know, in Chinatown, people break in, they break windows, and they go online and harass the restaurant owner. Tell me what you know about that.
Could you tell me about the Jade Garden incident? I'm not sure I know exactly what happened with that.
Okay. So, I just touched on it with you the other night, but Jade Garden experienced 3 break-ins since the pandemic, and people spray paint the restaurants, and they troll the owner on social media. They set up a fake website with his pictures that they stole from his different social media sites, and then put them online saying stuff as if it was him saying these things, and cause for the community to have a backlash against him, but it wasn't him that actually did it. So this kind of sneaky, underhanded, insidious treatment of Asian businesses and Asian community, such as that, need to be brought and publicized and talked about and written about. This aggression and being considered foreigners have to be talked about. And I'm really glad that you are using this platform to bring more awareness into the world, into the pageant, and the people attend and watch it and follow it. So we have just a couple seconds left, and I just want to congratulate you on the courage to, one, participate in the pageant, which is something that I never thought that would be something that you would be interested in a million years. Here you are running, and it's what day is it going to be? Where is it going to be?
March 21st at the Holiday Inn.
Okay, that is in what
Wilsonville, Oregon.
Okay, and if people want to know more information about the show, where would they go?
You could go to MissWashingtonTeenUSA.com, and that's where all the information should be.
All right. Well, thank you, Tara, for joining me today on Afternoons with Monique. It is Women's History Month, and Rainier Avenue Radio is having a lineup of shows, specials that dedicate to this theme. Please go on avenue.world to check out our schedule for that. I will see you all next week. Thank you, Tara. Have a good
Thank you.